My name is Gibby from the Horror Homestead, and the trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic just came out, and it settled the long-debated topic of whether or not the Tales from the Pizzaplex books are canon. In Tales from the Pizzaplex, Edwin Murray is a poor inventor of a failing company who has to do work for Fazbear Entertainment working on endoskeletons. He creates the Mimic animatronic to give his son David a friend. David then dies, and the Mimic continues to mimic David's actions, so Edwin beats it up and then disappears. Fazbear Entertainment, having lost contact with Edwin, goes to the warehouse to reclaim their property. They find the Mimic, having previously not even known of its existence, give it legs, and because of overly literal AI programming, and also agony or something, it starts killing the workers. At the start of the Secret of the Mimic trailer, we hear,
"Your job is simple. Enter the warehouse and retrieve the technology that he was developing for us. It's a kind of prototype endoskeleton that can adapt to any costume and become any character."
So in the game's continuity, Edwin was tasked by Fazbear to make the Mimic endoskeleton. There you have it. The books are just an adaptation of the story that Scott wanted to tell in the games, with the Mimic having a different origin. While things like Edwin's existence and his role in making the Mimic are the same, and it's possible that other elements like the Mimic's eventual fate in a Jester costume will be the same, the books are definitively not canon. And that's the end of that. 2 months ago, I made a video about how the reveal of the Tiger Rock plush was not confirmation that the books were canon. That video went over really well, and everyone loved it. Well, this video is actually going to be the same. For the remainder of its runtime, I'm going to explain why the trailer does not actually prove that the books aren't canon, and how the book debate basically hasn't changed whatsoever. This line from Hand Unit,
"The technology that he was developing for us,"
means nothing. Let's begin. In the time since my Tiger Rock plush video, I've come up with a new way of visualizing how evidence should impact belief among people, and that is this needle thing. If all the way to the left is pure confirmation, Scott Cawthon said so himself, and all the way to the right is pure deconfirmation, Scott Cawthon said so himself, then there's a lot of wiggle room in between. I made the red areas basically confirmed, where evidence is so overwhelming that we basically don't need Scott to tell us. Like, Scott, as far as I know, has never said that the movie is not canon. But the needle is still there, like, duh. Around the red areas, I have orange sections. These seem to me to be the reasonable place where someone with a reputation on the line, like a YouTuber, would start to state something as more true than not. Now, some people might have different takes on this. Some people might think that 51% in one direction is enough to state that they believe something. For me, it's more like 80%. I need to be at least 80% sure on something to make a video saying I believe it, and I need to be in the red area to make a video saying it's true. So like, I'm in the red area about Molten MCI, I'm in the orange area about Midnight Motorist not being about the Aftons, and I'm in the white area about whether or not the books are canon. I'm over 50% in the they are area, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna say that in a video. When new evidence comes out, like the Tiger Rock plush or like the Secret of the Mimic trailer, in which the books are heavily contradicted, it moves the needle in one direction. The Tiger Rock plush pushed the needle toward the books being canon. But then when you investigate this evidence, you go, well, actually, upon looking at it, the plush means literally nothing. And so the needle goes back to where it was before the plush was revealed. I imagine this like blowing up a balloon, like when you make a pump, the needle moves, but then it settles back to where it was. With this new trailer, the needle flew pretty far in the direction that the books are not canon. If we take the trailer at face value, this is almost as confirmed as it can possibly be. It's deep orange. And the point of this video is to say, well, actually, upon looking at it, the contradiction probably means nothing. And by the end of this video, I hope I can convince you that we're basically back to where we started. What's interesting to note about this model is that when new information comes out and it moves the needle, and then it settles back to where it was, sometimes the community reacts in ways that are concerning. When the Tiger Rock plush was revealed and the needle went like this, the Tales Games believers people celebrated. This seemed like a major victory, because, even if it didn't end up mattering, the needle moved in their direction. Now that the needle is moving in the opposite direction, even if it settles back to where it started, I see the anti-Tales game people celebrating in the same way, which is equally as disheartening. Once again, the point of this video is to try to convince the people who are celebrating that the books aren't canon because of the trailer, that the trailer really means nothing. And we're going to tackle it in 3 sections. 1. Retcons are bad sometimes. 2. Trailers lie. And 3. Characters lie. As always, I think discussing other popular franchises is the best way to go about these topics. It disarms people and makes them more willing to consider situations if it's not talking about FNAF itself. Most people know popular franchises like Star Wars and the MCU, and so using those as examples is a good shorthand for getting people to think about this without their FNAF bias. It will also, hopefully, help some FNAF experts understand that when they're talking to people who might not know FNAF as well as they do, that those other people might have more experience with multimedia franchises than them. I say it a lot, but a lot of FNAF experts are only experts in FNAF, and so when something happens for the first time in Five Nights at Freddy's, but that has happened in other franchises, it would be good for those people to defer to the expertise of people from other fandoms, even if they're not as well versed on FNAF. Alright, let's get into it. Retcons can be clumsy, lazy, and bad. In FNAF 2, the person outside the restaurant in the Take Cake minigame is referred to as a him. Later, we learn this is Charlie, a girl. This hasn't been cleared up throughout the entire series. You can headcanon it away by saying, oh, him refers to the puppet, a male character. Or, oh, the person spelling out him is lying to the player for XYZ reasons. But no matter what, it's only a headcanon that's filling in this inconsistency. It's still an inconsistency. It's still a retcon. It's not what Scott originally intended. In Star Wars, Obi-Wan tells Luke that Darth Vader killed his father. When this was retconned to Darth Vader being Luke's father, Obi-Wan had to come out and tell Luke and the audience that he was lying actually, sorry bro. It's true from a certain point of view. At the end of Avengers Age of Ultron, after Ultron failed to destroy the world, a post-credit scene reveals Thanos grabbing the Infinity Gauntlet, saying,
"Fine. I'll do it myself."
This is a tease, a setup for the next Avengers movie, Infinity War. The directors of Infinity War said that they're completely ignoring that this happened because it doesn't fit with the backstory and characterization that they have for Thanos. So you can view this post-credit scene as something that happened, but the writers are ignoring it. The 90s Doctor Who movie dramatically reveals that the Doctor's mother is human unless he is half human. This was incredibly stupid, and every other writer since has just pretended that it didn't happen. If it were to ever be addressed again, I think the Doctor would just say that he was lying. In the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the character Angel has intricate tattoos on his back. In the comic book continuation of the series, his back is shown without tattoos. Readers pointed this out, and so in a later issue, it's revealed that a spell that had previously temporarily made Angel not a vampire also removed his back tattoo. In The Simpsons, miscommunication between the American writers and the Korean animators led to the character Smithers being black in his first appearance. And then starting from his second appearance onward, he's white, and we just kind of ignore that that happened. In Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the TV show was cancelled. Scripts that would have been episodes were turned into books, including a book about the character Ahsoka. Years later, the show was given another series and was able to wrap up. In that final season, scripts were retooled to fit what the creators now wanted to do, and the color of Ahsoka's lightsabers were changed. This now contradicts the book that was written before these episodes, but takes place after them. No one says that the Ahsoka book isn't canon due to a lightsaber color change, and we're just aware that it happened because of a change of mind of the creators and a miscommunication between departments. No one is asking for deep lore about Smithers' skin color change. We understand that it was a communication error. Angel's tattoo and Darth Vader being Luke's father were addressed by characters in the story themselves because the authors felt like they had a good opportunity to do so. But in other cases, creators just ignore what other writers set up for them. We know that Scott Cawthon gives outlines for the Tales books to the authors for them to follow, and sometimes the books don't line up with other aspects of the series, even if they're meant to be canon. We should know, from every other series that has ever been made, that even if multimedia aspects of a series are all canon, there usually is a tier. In Star Wars, the movies outrank the books. In FNAF, the games outrank the books. So if Scott always intended Fazbear Entertainment to get Edwin to make the Mimic, but the Mimic book, due to a miscommunication between Scott and the author, made it seem like the Mimic was Edwin's idea, then that can be cleared up in this game. Either because this game will override that story, like Infinity War brushing away the Ultron post-credit scene, or it'll give it a cheeky retcon, like Angel's tattoo. Either way, a miscommunication across works in a multimedia franchise with many authors does not mean that one is not canon. FNAF 2 contradicts itself with when it takes place. It makes perfect sense and is absolutely excusable that the game contradicts the book, even if Scott didn't mean it to. The book can still be canon, even if the game contradicts it. Part 2. Trailers lie. The MCU is notorious for trailers changing things to avoid spoilers. They just straight up lie to the audience. The Infinity War trailer showed Hulk at the Battle of Wakanda, which is not what happens in the movie. The Guardians of the Galaxy 2 trailer is not as brazen, but it uses editing to lie and make it seem like the movie's villain is different.
It is our duty to cleanse the universe of this weakness.
It's a lie about the premise of the entire movie. The Madam Web trailer is a lie using lines that don't appear in the movie to infamously say,
"He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died."
And most famously of all, the trailer for the Playmobil movie totally lies to you about its premise.
Rex Dasher, for your next mission, we're partnering you with 2 civilians.
This is not what the movie is about. It hides the main character, who's actually this girl we see for like half a second, and it makes it appear like this side character, who's only in the movie for 10 minutes, is the main character by using a line that's not in the movie. I actually have a whole video about this. I will link it below. The FNAF 2 trailer also lies, using new Phone Guy dialogue that doesn't appear in the game, and is also something that Phone Guy wouldn't say.
Well, if you're hearing this, then chances are you've made a very poor career choice.
This line is for the trailer. It's for the people watching the trailer. The FNAF 6 Steam page description and title are also lies by Scott because he wants to hide what FNAF 6 really is. So it's possible that Hand Unit's lines in the trailer are just not in the game. They're there to get the general audience interested.
Your job is simple. Enter the warehouse and retrieve the technology that he was developing for us.
Rex Dasher, for your next mission, we're partnering you with 2 civilians.
Well, if you're hearing this, then chances are you've made a very poor career choice.
"He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died."
Superfans are jumping up and down about how it contradicts the lore when it was probably never intended to mean anything other than to be a setup about the game's premise. And that's what the point of a trailer is. Like, a trailer's not going to say, "We need you to go into a factory to retrieve a piece of technology that Edwin made for his son. And then his son died, and he imbued it with agony. He then left it in a warehouse, and we found it, and we accidentally brought it to life. That whole team died, and we now want you to go and retrieve it, but we're gonna lie to you and tell you that that's not what you're doing because we don't want you to be scared of it." Like, no, the trailer has to be clear and to the point. It doesn't matter if it's true, it matters if the people watching the Sony State of Play live stream pick up the game. Part 3. Hand Unit is just lying to us. I ran a poll about these 3 possibilities, and this was the most popular by far. Fazbear Entertainment and Hand Unit just lie. A lot. Five Nights at Freddy's stories usually lie. I have a video about that as well. The beginning of the game tells you one thing, and then by the end of the story it's been recontextualized. So Fazbear Entertainment says, "Yeah, we paid for this thing to get made, go and get it." And then at the end of the game you learn that it was made for David. He died by running out on the road, and then there was a car. And now Agony haunts it, and Fazbear is trying to steal it. There you go, Hand Unit is a big liar. If any one or any combination of these 3 very common things are true, then the game doesn't contradict the books. And these are all really, really, really likely. Now, if the game does come out and it does contradict the books, that's very different, obviously. But just like with the plushes reveal, I think this makes us think one thing, but then if you really look at it, it doesn't actually move the needle. There are just too many alternative explanations for what we see for it to be convincing evidence. And so my conclusion remains unchanged. I've never had a conclusion about if the Tales from the Pizzaplex is games canon. And this trailer hasn't changed my mind at all. I made this video before watching anyone else's take on it. I think that ID's Fantasy is working on a video about this topic, and I'm very excited for that. This was not made in response to any given person who I've talked to about this, whether in Discord group chats, on Twitter, or on YouTube. I've been formulating this video for basically the last 12 hours in my mind, and I'm not making it in response to anything that any given person has said. I just hope that some combination of theorists' videos will ease the angry discourse and point out that this isn't really a big deal. Let me know in the comments below if, after the trailer, you now lean more into thinking that the books aren't canon, or if it didn't change your mind at all. Remember to be nice to each other in the comments, consider supporting the creators you admire, and never lose sight of the things that are important to you, which means do not argue about the books instead of living your life. Remember that Freddy stands for friendly, respectful engagement, discussion, and discourse yields success. I will see you next time.